Alice's laugh reaches me before she does. "Look at him," she calls out, dragging Ben Alexander along by his blazer. "Still wearing rentals, Earl?" Heads turn. Someone snickers. Ben glances down at my watch, like he's trying to do some silent calculation he can't quite finish. Alice leans in, teasing. "Cat got your tongue, or just broke and too proud to admit it?" 6 days ago, the man she's mocking, me, signed a $780 million contract with a national retail chain. She's got no clue. My name is Earl Danforth. I'm 44 years old, and for years, people thought my silence meant weakness. Really? It's just the noise you stop making when you no longer care what anyone thinks. 8 years ago, Alice packed 2 suitcases and walked out of our house on Maple Street. Never looked back. Tonight, that decision's about to bite her. She's trying to bait me, standing angled toward the crowd, rehearsing her story for tomorrow before this night's even over. I don't flinch, so she gets nothing. 3 years ago, I stood in an empty warehouse with a shaky loan, unsure if I'd ever pay it off. Nobody cared then. That's what people forget. The year's failures still felt possible with the years no one was watching. Last Thanksgiving, my brother-in-law said I'd never get past 6 trucks. He tried to sound concerned. Mostly he sounded smug, like he was just being honest. "Nothing to say, Earl?" Alice tilts her head, reading my silence as surrender. 6 months ago, I closed a deal that would have made my old man drop his tools in shock. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat on the porch and let my coffee go cold. Honestly, I almost didn't show up tonight. Margaret asked if I needed to put myself through this. You don't owe them any version of yourself you don't want to give. She was right. I came anyway, if only to find out which version of me would show up. Ben pipes up again this time, angling for the crowd. "So, where's this famous company? Looks like you're still in the same suit from prom." Laughter ripples through the room. Alice smiles. She thinks she's landed a hit. I stay silent, watching Ben's eyes dart to my watch, like it's a locked door he wants someone else to open. Here's the reality. The deal I closed 6 days ago means Danforth Industries is about to be on every job site in a 12-state radius by spring. Ben's own company, the one he keeps dropping into conversations, is just one of 43 firms bidding for the crumbs. He has no idea whose table he's standing at. "That's it?" Alice steps in closer, heels snapping on the marble. "You're just going to stand there with your little card case?" I pocket it without a word. "Tell them what you're doing these days, Earl," she says, louder. "Still playing with trucks?" Someone laughs too loudly, the kind of laugh that's begging for approval from everyone else. I leave the silence hanging. 8 years taught me it's the one thing nobody can out-argue. "He probably still renting that suit," Ben tries again, but now his voice sounds tentative, like he's testing ice he's not sure will hold. A couple chuckles, not the reception he wanted. "I bought this watch the week we landed our first hospital contract. Not for show. For the guy who drove a flatbed for 6 years and needed one thing to honor the price he paid." Alice softens, just barely. "Must be nice," she says, quieter, still playing strong and silent. "You were exhausting when we were married, too." It hits exactly where she means it to. 8 years later, she still remembers every loose stitch. She doesn't know that right now, 43 companies are trying to grab subcontracts under my name, and Ben's filed for hardship extension, missed payroll twice, one lapsed insurance renewal away from losing his license. He doesn't know I know. "Anyway," Alice says with a flick of her hand, as if to wave me off. "Glad you're doing okay, I guess. Okay, I guess. Like the suit isn't Italian, like the watch doesn't cost more than her car." I almost tell her everything. 6 years of proof, burning the tip of my tongue. But that's when I see Margaret. royal blue dress, just inside the doorway, quietly watching. Alice has no clue. This is the woman who'll rewrite her whole script before the night is done. That's the truth. I always have been. I was never the problem. Sorry, I say, my first real word to Alice all night. Little distracted. By what? She glances over, but Margaret's already slid out of sight, patient in a way Alice never could be. You used to be more fun, Alice says, arms crossed, still diagnosing. Before all this. 10 years married, and not once did she ask what I was building, only what it cost. Is this really what our life is going to be? She'd ask, like ambition was a sickness she might catch. Fun, I echo. Is that what you call working 2 jobs to pay for the house? Here we go, she groans, rolling her eyes at Ben, trying to draw him back into the joke. This part I never told anyone, not even Margaret. 6 months before Alice left, I turned down a partnership because she said I needed me present. 8 weeks later, she was gone, left with some guy from her yoga studio, the type who leased a BMW and called himself an entrepreneur. I found out through a friend, not from her. I built the life anyway, just not with her in it. I used to think you'd make something of yourself, Alice murmurs, softer now. Didn't think I'd have to wait this long to see it. That's as close as she'll ever come to saying sorry, bundled so tight in condescension I almost miss it. I didn't wait, I say. You left. She starts to respond, but no words come. That's when I notice Lee standing at the edge of the group. His cousin works in permitting in Springfield. He's probably already heard about the Danforth deal. He's not laughing. He's watching me, waiting for the moment someone says something they can't walk back. Alice doesn't catch on. She's still fishing for a reaction. You didn't wait, I say again. You left. This time, the words hang there, and the room shifts around us. Now she asks, "Who is that?" I don't answer. I don't need to. 3 years ago, Margaret sat across from me in a diner, legal pad in hand, telling me my business plan wasn't going to make it. I hired her before my coffee cooled. 2 years later, I married the only person who ever saw my ambition as a foundation, not a threat. Alice still hasn't looked back. It's not like, she starts, fiddling with her glass. Alice, Ben says quietly, looking past her shoulder. Confusion washes over Alice, then calculation. The clothes, the confidence, the way Margaret stands like money's never made her nervous. Then a flicker of dread, though she can't say why. Earl, Margaret's voice, warm, steady, just loud enough. Sorry I'm late. Whitfield call ran long. 4 words. 3 people near us freeze. The Whitfield call? Alice repeats. Margaret places her hand on my arm. I don't need her to say another word. Alan Whitfield, Margaret says, smiling at Alice. We finalized the distribution contract this week. She pauses. Have we actually met? Alice can't respond. I watch her try to piece it all together, miles behind Ben. This is Margaret, I say, my wife. Alice's glass reflects the light. She almost drops it. You're... since when? 2 years, Margaret says pleasantly. Earl doesn't exactly headline it at parties. That's when Lee steps forward, loud enough for everyone to hear. Wait, Margaret Black? The one who closed the Whitfield deal for Danforth Industries? That's right. Danforth, Lee says slowly, piecing it all together for the whole room, as in Earl Danforth. Lee turns up the volume. My cousins in Springfield. Danforth Industries just cleared the Whitfield build. 12 states, biggest infrastructure contract in a decade. A murmur spreads. Phones drop. Heads turn. That can't be right, Alice laughs, brittle. Earl runs residential work. He... 780 million, Lee says. Didn't believe it until just now. I don't need to say a word. Margaret's hand is steady on my arm, and I let the number echo. 8 years of silence couldn't do what a single figure just did. 700? Alice's voice catches, searching me for the man she left on Maple Street. She doesn't find him. And then Ben screws up. "This is ridiculous," he blurts, forcing a laugh, reaching for Alice. "Babe, let's just get another drink. This is—" Lee doesn't let him off the hook. "Since we're on the subject, Ben, Alexander Construction? Hardship extension filed in March. Missed payroll twice. License up for review. Let your liability insurance lapse in April." The color drains from Ben and then from Alice. "That's confidential," Ben snaps. "You can't just—" "Public record," Lee says. "Anyone can look it up." "You told me you were expanding," Alice says, and suddenly the performance is gone. "You said you were about to bid on—" "I was going to bid," Ben says too quickly. "The subcontractor list went out this morning. 43 companies applied. Alexander Construction isn't one of them." Alice's glass slips from her hand. No theatrics, just simple defeat, shattering on the marble. No one helps. "Earl, is any of this true?" I look at her, and there's no anger, not even satisfaction, just a quiet door closing. $780 million, I say, 6 days ago. Ben's already putting distance between them, a man stepping away from a building he sees is on fire, and Alice, left over the shards of her own glass, looks to him already knowing how this ends. Ben, nothing but desperation. He won't take her hand. "I need to make a call," he mumbles, already breaking away. "A call? You just heard. Everyone just heard." "I heard what they heard," he says flatly. "That's why." "I didn't mean to," Lee starts. "It's fine," I say, eyes on Alice. "You're really leaving," she says, not asking. "I have a business to protect," Ben calls back, already halfway to the bar, searching for escape. 8 months? She blurts. 8 months, and you walk because some guy's cousin works in a permit office? He stops, but doesn't turn. "I told you, don't bring up the extension. You wanted an audience." And there it is, the precise second when someone realizes the person standing beside them only ever cared for the spotlight. Ben doesn't look back. He orders a drink and pulls out his phone, already trying to outrun a story that's moving faster than either of them. Alice stares at the broken glass like it's only now part of her reality. "Earl, I didn't know about the extension, any of it, I swear." "I believe you, and I do. That might be worse for her." Then there's a look between Alice and Margaret, not quite jealousy, not quite regret, something that feels like seeing the possible life you turned your back on. "Can I ask you something?" Alice's voice is quieter, now just for me. "Did you plan any of this? Did you know how it would end up?" I'm about to answer when Ben's voice cuts in, sharp and panicked, to no one and to everyone. "Wait!" He's staring at his phone. "The subcontractor list, it's already online." He doesn't finish. "You never answered her," Alice says. "Answered who?" "Me. About whether you planned all of this." "I didn't. I didn't even want to come. I just needed to know if I could look around that room and feel nothing." "And did you?" "For a moment there was something. Not anger, just quiet, like watching a door shut, only this time I was on the right side of it. My phone buzzed a couple times before 9 p.m. that night, a reporter looking for comment on the Whitfield deal, and Lee apologizing for letting slip more than he meant to. I don't blame him. Sometimes the truth only comes out when someone's brave enough to ask the right question in front of the wrong crowd. I ignored Alice's text at midnight. By morning, Alexander Construction had already lost 2 clients. Word travels fast once a single room starts calling the next. Did I still feel something for Alice? Yeah, a little. Not enough to call her, just enough to hope she lands somewhere steady someday. Your brother-in-law called, Margaret says, while you were in the shower. I look at her. He'd already seen it online, wanted to know if it was true. She pauses. He sounded smaller, Earl. Like he realized he bet against the wrong horse a long time ago. My sister still worries if her station's going to hit the next milestone. She tells me gently, thinking she's keeping my hope from getting crushed. Alice's disbelief used to bother me, but now it's just background noise. Another project coming together quietly that doesn't need anyone's approval. What are you thinking? Margaret asks. I'm thinking that closure was never about winning, I say. It was about walking out of that room and not caring if she was still watching. The phone buzzes once against the table, face down. Neither of us reaches for it right away. Reporter again? Margaret guesses. Maybe. I don't flip it over. Or Alice. She doesn't ask which one I'm hoping for. Some mornings I'm still not sure. 8 years ago, I watched my wife drive away, 2 suitcases in someone else's car, believing she'd taken a piece of me with her. Last night, in a room full of people who remembered a version of me that doesn't exist anymore, I finally understood. Turns out, I never needed anyone's applause to know what I'd built was real. The phone buzzes again. I wait another beat before picking it up.